It is now time to experience the buzz, a podcast that takes an inside look at amazing people doing amazing things. Get ready for some great conversation that will be fascinating, educational, and inspiring. We will also leave room to help small businesses in a big way. Now, here's your host, entrepreneur Steve Buzzard.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in. It is Experience the Buzz. My name is Steve Buzzard, your host of this podcast. So glad to be with you, and I just want to say thank you for being a listener and maybe just stopping by to check us out. Who are we? Well, ETB has been around since January of 2021, and we highlight entrepreneurs in the Sacramento area. Today, we've got two. That's right. We're going to bring it together with DeCamilla and JARED MIKACICH of DeCamilla Capital Management, LLC. They are located right here in Sacramento on J Street and 41st Street. Good stuff there. And today we're going to be talking investments. Oh man, this is a tough one for me because I admit this is not my lane. And so I know that you and I are going to be educated on investing. And it's really cool because the stories of these two gentlemen, very, very cool to hear, right? They have athletic backgrounds. They have brought it. They are now working together. DeCamilla has been here since 1998, so that's 26 years in running. JARED MIKACICH actually went from a whole different career to now join forces and be a part of the team. So don't want to give too much away, but man, so good to be back. So excited to be back, and I hope that you enjoy the conversation. All right, hello everyone, and welcome in. Yes, it is Experience the Buzz. So good to be back with you. It's taken a little time in between, but now that I'm back to retirement from my 9-to-5 job, I'm very excited to get back into the podcast world. And today we've got not one but two guests. I am happy to present to you DeCamilla and JARED MIKACICH, and they are with DeCamilla Capital Management, LLC. They have been in business since 1998, so 26 years in running as we are in the year 2024. Dave and JARED, welcome to Experience the Buzz.
Steve, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah,
and
thanks.
an honor.
Yeah, thanks so much. It's good to be with you. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, honesty, we always start with the connection. This is my first introduction to Dave, so I'm very excited to hear his story. JARED and I, we actually go way back, and maybe JARED, you can share why.
Absolutely. So I think our first interaction was through my kids and your camps and your league, Buzzard Ball, the camp, and Buzzard Ball, the league. We've had the honor, quite frankly. I hope everyone understands what you do for the community and what you do for these kids. But I think it's very, one of the highlights, I think, of Buzzard Ball for my kids and my family is it's very age appropriate. What I mean by that is you bring the joy to the sport and you let the kids progress as they see fit. Not the other way around where you're pounding these kids to be something they're not, and you can integrate kids of all levels. And so we've had a really great experience with it. We certainly think you do a great job, and I know my kids have loved it.
Yeah, and both of them now in high school, and it was a great run. We have a Hall of Fame at Buzzard Ball. They're both in it for good reasons. And here's the thing, they're both great athletes, but that's not the reason they're in the Hall of Fame at Buzzard Ball. It's because of who they are. And obviously you and your wife have done a great job. So love the connection piece. That always kind of gets us going. And Dave, I really want to talk about your business. I had said to you before we came on, I know it's about investments, and I expect this to be an education, but tell us a little bit about your company.
Steve, we specialize, if you will, with high net worth individuals, trusts, people that have retirement and need some customization in their portfolio. There's quite a bit today. You alluded earlier to Vanguard, Fidelity, there's nothing wrong with those things. It's a one-size-fits-all approach, and it's very scalable. I mean, you can handle a lot of people with a fund. Here it is, we, on the other hand, think there's a little more to it than that. I was a broker for 15 years. I got out of that, set up my own shop, because people really need investment leadership. And a lot of what passes for that is just send us your money and keep quiet. We, on the other hand, actually get under the hood. We eat our own cooking. In other words, each portfolio is from scratch, no products, no funds. We have large positions in America's biggest and best companies, Microsoft, Qualcomm, Johnson & Johnson, it goes on and on, Verizon. So our portfolios really have the hallmark of a customized asset base tailored to the individual. If somebody wants more growth and less income or vice versa, we tend to stay away from a lot of screwy things, really. We think, for example, the bond market. People say, well, I want to be diversified and I need to own 30 or 40% in fixed income. Well, that's like saying, to take a basketball analogy, having a team full of power forwards. You're not going to get any points. You're just not. You get a lot of rebounds.
That's a great analogy.
But if you need 120 points a night or 100 points a night, you're not going to get it. So you really, we try to bring that to the public and say, look, Mrs. Jones, Mr. Jones, this is what you need to do. And we find that it works. We manage about 140 some million dollars for individuals. It sounds like a lot, but frankly, we're an overnight success after 26 years. I mean, it's time in the market, patience. We've gone through, and you provide the leadership. It's like sports. Not every draft pick is a winner. Not every game is a winning situation, but a process such that you're trying to constantly improve, you have good results, and that's what we do with it. Our portfolios are such that if a company's not performing, they're gone. We've had our mistakes, Walgreens and things like that, but on balance, we have large positions in enterprises that have made people rich. And people say, gee, that's hard to do. No, it isn't. You get a Tom Brady in your lineup, and guess what? You're going to win some ball games. So
man, I love the analogies, Dave.
Well, I come from that background. Jared as well. We've been pounded. I mean, you find out what in sports. You find out what doesn't work real fast, and you can't suffer platitudes and gee whiz, this and that. No, you gotta get ready to go and have some performance. We kind of say we hit for average. We want to own. Mr. Jones, you're diversified. You're in a mutual fund. Well, what is it?
Right.
You don't know. So
I love it. And we should tell you, Dave is the co-founder. He is the CEO of this company that we're talking about, which again is DeCamilla Capital Management, LLC, located on 41st Street, J Street, 41st and J Street. Now you got this guy beside you, and I know you kind of brought him onto the team, and we're going to talk about building a team here. But Jared, what would be your title, and what do you do within the company?
Yeah, I'm Senior VP of Institutional Accounts, but I also handle individual clients as well. Mm-hmm. And I think Dave gave a nice overview of what we do, but I think it's important for us that we focus on each individual client. Like I said, we're bowed to their success. Dave always says we're connected at the hip, and we don't work for anybody else. The client is our boss, and we do what's best for them long term. Some of the success I think that Dave has shown me over the years, and part of the reason why I've been, I think successful here is the commitment to put the money to work and then manage the money. And there's a big difference between making money and managing money. And so we focus on, managing the money for our clients. And we focus on, sometimes the best things we do is what we avoid, and that is things like autos, airlines, crypto. We don't do derivatives or options. We don't gamble with people's money. And we also stay based on U.S. companies. And so our success has been, based on that fundamental foundation. So I think those are some of the positives that we do, and that's, why I was intrigued in the first place.
Well, here's the thing.
I was fortunate to be my neighbor.
That helps too, right? And so let's get into it. I'm thinking as you guys are speaking, with each industry, right, there's going to be stigmas, whether they be good or bad. So as I hear about investments, and I'll just tell you my personal story, is I really didn't know, right? I knew it was important and probably got started later than I should in life, but they always say you're never starting too late as long as you're starting. But you know, I have the visions of Wolf on Wall Street. I have the visions of, man, I've heard these horror stories of, you know, how companies like this do work. I don't see that here, but help me clear that up, because that's the big thing. Because the word that stuck out for me in your introduction, Dave, was customization, right? And looking at your website, the first thing you talk about is customer service. So that, to me, the trust factor has absolutely got to be huge. Can you dive into that a little bit more? And maybe, Jared, you could also tag on as well.
Yeah. Maybe I'll start with that one, because I think the trust is critical. In fact, we're very hesitant to even work with people unless they'll sit down and meet with us. So our first step is we need to have a dialogue to see if we're a right fit for you. And what I mean by that is some people like to be more aggressive and go into options and go into some derivatives and do things like that, or go into some private equity or buy funds or things like that. So I think where we're real specific is, for example, if you're in a big fund, that fund is probably being driven by 2 or 3 companies. So we'll take a look at that fund and then maybe suggest to our clients, why don't you just run with those 3 or 4 or 5 companies that are driving the fund? And so we have a pretty good argument from that standpoint. So what we'll do is then we'll put them, and they'll have ownership in those core companies, and they're US-based companies, and we'll stay away from the products. So now we're not being pushed by big companies to sell their products or to sell their funds or to sell their CDs or whatever you might have. We're sticking with individual equities, and we build their portfolio based on that, whether it be growth, a core product, or a total return product. And what I mean by product is actual companies. Those specific, you got your fast rabbits like your NVIDIAs, and then you have your returns like a Verizon, and you have a core company like, say, Microsoft. So we'll kind of assess things based on that, and then, like Dave stated in his opening, also, you know, if they want more revenue, then we look at high dividend payers. If they want fast rabbits, we look at some of the tech stuff. So it just depends on really the stage of the investment. But if they're not willing to sit down with us and really hash through those details, then quite frankly, we don't feel it's a right fit. And then, you know, we unfortunately have to either say they're doing the right thing or suggest something else. But I think that's what we mean by customization. And that, to go back to that, that helps us eliminate your concerns, right? With going with these big companies that are maybe doing private equity and they're leveraging a lot of things, or they're just buying products. So if they're buying new products, they're not really managing your account. And then we try to avoid a lot of fixed income stuff, because our experience is that nothing's fixed. You know, I don't know any costs that are fixed, and therefore, you know, we try to avoid those and keep our clients vested in things that'll give them a fighting chance.
So Dave, before you jump in, okay, I know you guys, you deal with individual, you deal with companies, and right now we're kind of speaking to the individual. What Jared just said there, I got about 20% of that. and so, but I say that because that's my reality. My reality is I was, you know, Vanguard, SP 500, don't touch it. Maybe put the 6 or 7,000 in a year, let it grow. But I also believe that when you don't know something, you should lean on experts like yourself to help kind of work that. So can you talk to me as an individual that is in this space that obviously is not aggressive? It's something I just certainly would want to put in place. And what percentage do I represent with the clients that you have?
First of all, what you're doing is good. It's not gonna not work. I mean, in fact, studies that they've done on most 401ks, retirements, find that people don't put enough in, number one. So by funding it, you're doing the right thing. 2, oftentimes they pick the wrong. Again, an analogy I use about, we got 9 power forwards in the lineup. You really need for us in our process. The S&P 500 is actually about the S&P 150. There's certain companies we just preclude. For example, we don't own any banks. They don't do anything. We want to own we call it enterprise driven. In other words, if we could own every share of the company, would we? Yeah, we would. Bill Gates really doesn't worry too much about diversification. He's loaded to the gills with a lot of that diversification thing, if you think about it, gee, Steve, you need Confederate Army uniforms for diversification. You don't own any of those, or antiques, or you can use diversification to justify any number of gewgaws and investment nonsense. That's what Wall Street does. I mean, frankly, Wall Street exists as a distribution channel. If you own it, sell it. If you don't own it, buy it. I mean, I saw that for 15 years. Now they're changing, but they fought the fiduciary standard, meaning what's best for your customer. That Wall Street and the insurance industry has fought that. So the mere fact that people in positions of investment leadership are getting compensated for one product or another is not a good idea. So in your particular case, what you want to do is think, okay, if I was building a portfolio, where do you start? You want high quality, very predictable companies. And that precludes, like Jared was alluding to, a lot of businesses just aren't good businesses. We kind of like asset-light companies that don't have a lot of heavy capital expenditure. We stay away from airlines and autos and extraction businesses, mining, oil and gas and all that. We own some gas pipelines because they have that constant, flow of money all the time. We like the pharmaceuticals and technology, things that really can put together an A+. You're buying as an individual, putting your retirement together. You're trying to put a revenue stream into the future. That's what you're trying to do. What company today can keep delivering returns and dividends into tomorrow and years beyond? That's what you're trying to do. And that's what we explain to people. So a portfolio might have, 15 to 25 companies in different industries weighted. So when you get a statement, you go, oh yeah, I don't know, Microsoft, Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson. Hey, that's a pretty good array of businesses and we're paid to manage that capital if a company breaks down. So as Jared pointed out earlier, we have to have a relationship with people. We're not here, sign up for this, see you on to the next person. No, that's not what we do.
Yeah, you want that long-term relationship.
Yeah, want people we've had clients for 20 years. I mean, and they've been through, talk about Russian currency crisis in '98. The lost decade where we had from 9/11 to '08, where we had 2 undeclared wars, tax increases. We were, as I deemed, prisoners of bad public policy. The markets couldn't move. Then the '08 thing, the market took a dump, and then from '09 to COVID, we had a pretty good run. We were getting pretty good public policy. We're bottom up, meaning we're saying, as I said earlier, if we could own every share of this business, would we put it in a portfolio? So think about it in terms of if you were putting what do they call it, a fantasy football team together. It's very similar. You say, geez, what dogs are going to hunt?
Dave, you always make me smile when you bring in a sports analogy, because then I'm like, okay, now I get it.
I mean, I'm coached. I understand, Charlie Smith can't block. Get him out of there. Get something in there again.
That's what I love.
There are certain, as you get older, you've made all the mistakes in the world. You don't want to keep making them, And I was coaching for 4 years in Western Pennsylvania. And I was working as a marketing director for a prepaid health plan, but part-time I would go and work at Carnegie Mellon. And we had a guy there, Chuck Klausing, who was very good friends with Steve Belichick, who was Bill Belichick's dad. And Chuck, who was a math teacher, always said, do your job. Do what you have to do. Well, that ethos, function, perform, do what you have to do, and you'll generally get a pretty good outcome. So that's the sports thing. Has some spillover into, you're trying not to make mistakes is basically what you're doing. Investing, now the S&P 500 is pretty much a default thing. You know, the world's not going to end, so you own this thing into the future, it's going to do okay. And given the S&P 500 or the average citizen is blowing his fingers and toes off, you know, in crypto, and the brother-in-law said this is a good idea, and they were too much in fixed income, you know, those things don't work. But
And I will say now that I'm combining like what you guys are saying, it's really kind of coming together. And that was the piece I knew coming into this, that this would not only be the education for those that are listening, it would be an education for me, you know? And so that's what I love about this discussion. And your segue into the sports is absolutely perfect, because that's where I want to go next, because you both have a very deep sports background, and I want you to share that and then talk about, you already kind of mentioned a little bit, Dave, the ethos of what you got from one person, right? The Steve Belichick and stuff. But I know there's been many that have come across your journey, some notable names too that I'm going to let you share. And then Jared, for you as well, like you had a great athletic career. You stayed here in California. I know you went on to St. Mary's and everything, but talk about those journeys, share those journeys, and then talk to me how those really have made an impact in what you do today.
Sure. I'll start because mine's a little bit quicker, because I'll just focus really, I mean, I had some great coaches all along the way, but I'll focus really my career locally, which was at Rio Americana High School, where I played 1 year of football. And right after that, I went into my freshman year of basketball. I had a pretty good year my freshman year at Rio. And my basketball coaches said, "Baby, why don't you never play football again?" And I said, probably not a bad idea. I had two brothers that were great at football, a sister that was great at quite a few sports. But yeah, so my experience at Rio, I think first and foremost, when you are on a team kind of striving for the same thing, that's really the benefit of a team, right? I mean, you have all different skill levels, you have all different levels of education or intelligence, and you have coaches guiding you. So what I really remember about Rio is every step of the way kind of progressing, getting stronger coaching. Al Manfredi was my head coach at Rio, and now the court's named after him, which is certainly was an honor for me to play for him, and certainly an honor to him now that the court will forever be in his name, and rightfully so. He's had a great success there. But also he had great partners too. He was kind of the X's and O's guys, and then he had guys that kind of had to light a fire under you. So he was able to even at that time assess who can I have next to me the whole time that'll benefit and support my ideas and drive this team to the next level. So again, really that was the benefit I got out of Rio. The benefit I've always gotten out of team sports is that you have to kind of be a great teammate at all times, but know your role is just as important, right? So, and I think that can be just as important as you grow up and become a father and or a businessman and move forward. So I think that's really the gist of what I want to say in regards to sports specifically. I've had some great mentors and friends, like Gene Upshaw was a dear friend of mine and became a mentor. Unfortunately, he passed away too young, but he was head of the Players Association, Hall of Famer for the Raiders. But more importantly, a wonderful, smart man, great family, his wife Terry and his boys. Were really a big part of my life when I was younger, and so they helped kind of shape me a little bit. And so experiences like those, Coach Manfredi, being a great guiding light and leader. Also my parents, certainly. I mean, not all of us are fortunate to come from great families, where my dad's in the Christian Brothers Hall of Fame, played football at Notre Dame, so quite an amazing athlete. I think he has 16 varsity letters from Christian Brothers. And I know you went to Christian Brothers. That's your alma mater. So my dad...
I didn't have 16 letters, though. But it is where I discovered that I wanted to be a broadcaster. So that was a big thing that came out.
So all of those things are important, and some people are fortunate enough to have those things in their lives. But there's also, not everyone plays sports. Thankfully, it was a big part of my life and still is with my kids. But people, have to, I think, find those experiences, whether it's just in the classroom or from your band instructor or from your art teacher or whatever it might be. You've got to, I think, take advantage of those relationships and lean on them and listen when you can. And so that was really, I think, the gist of my, high school basketball career, if you will. I think Dave's long history and stories are a little bit more in depth, and like you said, he's had the opportunity to come across some really influential coaches and players, and so we can listen to his story.
Yeah, for sure. And so while Jared had to say goodbye to football his freshman year to pursue basketball, that was definitely not the case for Dave. He was definitely a footballer. He's an offensive lineman and did very well. And it's not even having to do with the state of California. Give us your little journey.
Well, I was born and raised in Hudson Falls, New York, which was a little town on the banks of the Hudson north of Albany. And it's kind of a hard-scrabble mill town, really. I mean, we had a big GE plant there. And so I was big for my age. My uncle used to call me Baby Huey. So I got on the varsity football team as a freshman and did pretty well, actually. I mean, I don't know. I like football. My dad had a grocery store, and I was always into everything to do about sports. I could go on about the Lipton tea. I'm drinking Lipton tea, but the Lipton tea salesman came in and gave me a book on football. Lipton, of course, Lipton is sponsoring. During tea is your. I've never had a cup of coffee in my life, just basically because of the Lipton tea guy.
Oh, wow.
This is what you want. You want to be drinking tea for, Yeah. So, but I had a very good high school experience. I had very good high school coaching. And my senior year, we were undefeated and unscored on it. So that's kind of unusual. I played nose guard and linebacker. And I was a much better defensive player. And I was recruited by all the major schools, At that time, look, in 1965, that was, 50, 60 years ago? I mean, it was entirely different. I got recruited by Cornell, Vanderbilt, Penn State. The local schools, you didn't hear from UCLA, like today, a kid from, Placer High School sent kids to Alabama, and, they go all over. We didn't have that. So, unfortunately, our school, one of the schools I followed as a kid was the Army football team. So that's where I wanted to play my college ball. I was recruited by Penn State and a lot of schools that could have gone there, but I go to the United States Military Academy. Well, guess what? I'm no soldier. I was a good football player, but I wasn't cut out for, I just wasn't. But I was determined to play football for West Point, and our plebe team was pretty good. I played linebacker. Now that's where I got it, and I busted out. I didn't make it. By my June of my first year, I signed, I'm out of here. Paul Dietzel, who was at Army, he was the guy that recruited me, and he ended up going to South Carolina. So I followed him there. But while I was at West Point that spring, Bill Parcells was our linebacker coach.
Wow.
So you talk about nasty, he could be really nasty. He's a nasty guy. But he got, years later I read where, people play for Bill Parcells hurt because he just insults you so bad that and it's true. It was his motivator. I probably played my best football for him because he was such a SOB. He was tough, but he got you to play. So at South Carolina, they ended up converting me to offensive tackle, which I kind of, this is where you're playing. You didn't have, in that time, Lou Holtz was our defensive secondary coach, Sammy White. I had a red shirt that year. There was none of this, immediately.
Yeah, with the portal.
Yeah,
and,
no, there was none of that.
They've got no NIL money.
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah, zero.
A couple of, free Coke at the local, But Lou Holtz was our defensive secondary coach, and Sammy White was our redshirt quarterback coach. He was 24 or 5 at the time, and maybe 23, and he was working on his master's degree, but he ran the scout team, and I had a redshirt, so I was a center, tight end. You played wherever you had to. And years later, this is kind of a funny story. Weiss is coaching the Cincinnati Bengals. He's the head coach. And Holtz won the national championship at Notre Dame. And the Niners are playing the Bengals for the Super Bowl. And I'm kind of rooting for Sammy because he was on the staff at the Niners too. I mean, because that would have meant at that time two assistant coaches ended up winning the national championship. One in the Pro Bowl, one in the, but it didn't work out that way. I had anyway, to make a long story short, I had a good career at South Carolina. But it was different then. I started 3 years and I went to graduate school. I worked with Duffy Doherty. I was a grad assistant. Sherm Lewis was a backfield coach, and Jimmy Ray. They ended up going on to the Niners. And so was Sammy White. Sammy was the quarterback coach for a while. And I had a situation like this. My neighbor across the street was a rabid 49er fan. Irving Baker, great guy, old guy, loved the Niners. He's having a hip operation. So one of the things I did is I called Sammy up. I said, Sammy, I don't know if you remember me. I was on the radio. Oh, yeah, I remember you. Well, my neighbor's banged up, and could you send him some 49er, memorabilia, what do they call it? Bling and all that stuff.
Yeah.
2 days later, he gets a handwritten note from Sam. Dear Irv, hope you're feeling better. Here's all this accoutrement, brochures and so forth. And that was kind of the tail end of that was in 1982. But I had coached for 4 years, and then I moved to Pittsburgh. Long story short, I got out of school, went to graduate school, coached at Carroll College in Wisconsin for 2 years, and ended up working for Blue Cross. I ended up going to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania as a marketing director for Blue Cross, but I still had the bug to coach. So I called up this guy, Chuck Klausing, and he said, yeah, come on down. He worked for my coach, Paul Dietzel. He was good friends with Paul Dietzel. They were, Army at that time on a 60-man roster, they had 45 kids from Western Pennsylvania. Chuck was, people don't know this guy, he's one of the great coaches in Western Pennsylvania. He coached at Braddock High School, won 56 consecutive games in probably one of the toughest high school leagues in the country. Chuck's thing was always have a plan. He was a math teacher. I learned more from guys like him, Paul Dietzel, Lou Holtz. They weren't always nice. I mean, one game, Chuck beat me up for putting the subs in like a JV game. I said, Chuck, these guys got to play. He said, no, they don't win the game. I mean, it's a JV ball game. Get them in. No. So, but that was their competitive nature. That was how they played.
I love it.
That helps with investments, preparation. Don't make mistakes. It's. They make it look, good coaches will make it look easy, good investment managers will make it look easy. It isn't, And I think it's true of any professional.
Dave, when they say sports is life, that's kind of what we're talking about. There's all these tremendous parallels with what we do in life, with what we do in business. So, hey, we're just sharing stories here on Experience. They have a purpose because what we're talking about is DeCamilla Capital Management, LLC. We got Dave DeCamilla. He is the co-founder of the company. We got JARED MIKACICH. He's a California guy. He's a Sacramento guy, went to Rio Americana High School. He's on board with the team, and we're talking investments. And there's one other piece too, Jared, that I wanted to share that actually I didn't know about you until you sent over sheets kind of giving me a rundown. And I'm like, I had no idea that you worked in kind of the water, the ships, the luxury yacht industry, like for a big portion of your life. Can you kind of dive into that and what made you make the change over to what you're doing now? Because that's got to be a big shift for you.
Let me jump in here. Let me just jump in.
Yeah.
The reason we hired him was just because of that. You're running the ship, so it's very similar.
Yes.
Yeah, we always say keep a steady hand on the tiller is kind of our joke around here. First of all, I think Dave's being a little modest. If I'm not mistaken, he's in the Hall of Fame in South Carolina.
Thank you. If you weren't going to say it, I was. So yes.
And I think one of the top 5 best players ever to come out of there. But that's a side note. Who cares about that stuff? It's But
It's an honor.
he says it's an honor. Which it is for sure. But anyway, so yeah, my history, interestingly enough, growing up, my grandfather was actually a yacht broker down in Woolburn Harbor in Lodi, and so we were exposed to boats as a young age, as young kids at a young age, and I worked at North Tahoe Marina when I was in high school, and then a little bit after I graduated, and then it just parlayed. Once you're in that industry, things kind of, there's kind of a domino effect. You start to know companies, you start to know manufacturers, you start to know suppliers. So yes, I was in the industry, for quite some time. Even owned a dealership at one point. I guess I'm just trying to figure out how to talk about the history. But so our grandfather got into it. My younger brother's in the industry. We have a cousin, Jeremiah, that's in the industry. And so I started out running dealerships, selling boats, getting my broker's license, getting my captain's license, and doing everything from teaching water skiing and wakeboarding all the way through giving private tours on Tahoe for people like Michael Milken and Larry Ellison, which I've got some really interesting stories about for another time. But it was a good experience, right? So, successful people, and I got to spend a little bit of time with them. So that was interesting. And then from there, I went on to do everything from supplying boat manufacturers with products for like Maxwell Marine, anchors, port lights, things of that nature, even to the point where I worked for some software companies that did shipyard and marina management software. And so I think just a natural progression was getting to the point where I would help people. I think one downside to the industry is that it's all sales based. And what I mean by that is you've got your boat manufacturers, they run the dealerships are in charge of the clients, but it's all based on the sale. And there's really no great information out there just for the consumer. So that was kind of an angle that I took on with my brokerage, and then with doing some consulting for people buying or building boats. Because I knew the industry, and I wanted to tell the clients, very directly and work directly for them to help them navigate through that system. So that was really kind of my tenure into the marine industry. And I even worked for an oil company that created synthetic ester lubricants, so they're all readily biodegradable, but very high-performing lubricants. And I did that for about 5 years, and that kind of took me into some of the bigger boats and into some of the commercial shipping and commercial marine industry. And so from there, Dave and I were neighbors a little while back. From there, Dave and I started talking about him coming to work for DCM. And at the time, there was a lot of travel involved in what I was doing, and we have young kids. And so I looked at, travel, I looked at the investment industry, I looked at Dave and his business, and really that structure of helping the client, working directly for the client, and being very singularly focused were really the two main reasons why I decided to make the jump. And I'm been here over 3 years, going on my 4th year. I've learned a tremendous amount, and I think we have a great system, and I'm really enjoying it. So that's basically kind of the segue from that industry into this. It kind of, parlayed. The transition was really smooth, actually.
That's great.
Yeah,
And I know we kind of mentioned, like, we started out by talking with investments, but you also mentioned too, there's so much more that you guys do, not on an individual level or for a company. There's trust, there's endowments. We mentioned retirement stuff. Maybe kind of hit on those as well, so we kind of get that overall picture of what you guys do there.
Jump in on that. And that's, I think, the technical knowledge of our business is you can get your arms around that. What we can't teach, and what Jared and Ty and what I've noticed in the years, is you got to have the integrity, emotional intelligence, a good grasp of what's going to work, empathy, understanding, and be basically a good person. And you just have to look at the headlines, the crypto thing, have some skepticism. Not everything works. I mean, Wall Street is all about oh, isn't this great? And this is going to work and this is going to work. You need the integrity and the understanding right from wrong and putting your client first. All those traits have got really nothing to do with calculating PE ratios and earnings growth rates. That is readily accessible. What isn't is the high integrity that you need to manage other people's money. Other than their family and their health, their personal assets, I mean, you've seen it where these guys have run roughshod and destroyed households and families. And I mean, the public pension funds are, we're here with Stirs and Purrs. They're here. I've watched those people for 40 years. It's a nightmare. They can't even make their actuarial earnings assumptions in most years. And they're just prey to all these LPs and people selling them things. And we don't do that. I mean, we don't, because our people, I like to think Jared and Ty and myself, we understand what's realistic, and we're not afraid to tell the client, Mr. Jones, that's not going to work. Your expectations are unrealistic. Here's how the cow's going to eat the cabbage.
Yeah, you got to have some honesty.
If it's great, and if it doesn't, we'll move on.
Yeah, so to answer your question directly, so in regards to like defined benefits and pensions and things and trusts and things of that nature, really our core success so far has been with local companies. Okay. And what I mean by that is they have a handful of employees, whether they're a law firm or something similar, and they want to set up a retirement system for their employees. And so what we do is we work with a third-party entity that does the clerical side of that, setting up the defined benefits plan, making sure it's in compliance, and then DCM, us, we then manage the money for the retirement fund or the defined benefits plan, and then Charles Schwab is our custodian. So the reason I point all of those things out is because transparency is really critical. Meaning that Dave and I don't handle the money specifically. We manage the money through Schwab. So our clients have access to all of their tools in regards to visibility, which is really critical in our industry. You talk about trust and things of that nature. So, for example, I've converted some family members from a lot of funds and a lot of things that they really didn't understand to basically 20 to 30 companies now that they own, with about a 3 to 5% weighting in them. And literally about 30, 60 days into it, I was talking with this family member, and they basically said, we're glad that it's doing well. We're already doing better than we were with the funds. But more importantly, I understand every single line item.
Boom.
I know, like, I don't have to figure out who Johnson & Johnson is. I know who Verizon is. I know who. So it was interesting. They pointed out that clarity that was so valuable because for years, a decade or more, they were in funds and stuff, and they really had no idea. And I said, why don't you call your current advisor and ask them what are the top 10 holdings of each of those funds? Mm-hmm. And the reality is they have no idea. They couldn't answer the question. Wow. And so that was kind of the catalyst for them to say, okay, we like what you're saying, let's give it a shot. So I think that those things are really important. The clarity in which we do things, the fact that clients know what they own, and we limit some of the risk, if you will, by saying you're going to be 3 to 5% in any given company. And so we adjust accordingly based on those parameters.
Yeah, there's another thing, we're in an election year. There's two types of risks, just so you know. There's systemic risk and specific risk. If you take the analogy, I can be the best driver in the world of my automobile, and some guy can run a stop sign and run into me. That is risk that is systemic. You can't diversify away from it. It's inherent in. And what Wall Street tries to do is they try to tell people that they can diversify out of systemic risk. We, on the other hand, say, look, this is part of what you're dealing. You're in a football field. You can get hurt. This is part of the gig. You try to make the specific risks you can manage. Proper conditioning, a whole litany of how you practice, what you're doing. But there are systemic risks in the financial markets Last couple weeks ago on Monday, the Japanese currency trade. There's been umpty things that come out of the blue and cause these contractions. That's part of it. But how you manage it is owning the best of the best. They weather the storm. They come through it, and so in our regime and in talking to people about providing the investment leadership, we don't scare them. Oh, there's an election, time to move into this or that. That's total nonsense. And we on the other hand are really looking long term, 3, 5, 10 years out, and it makes the decision making much easier. Trying to predict what's going to happen next week.
Right.
Yeah, we don't really chase markets or companies. No. We look. When Dave mentioned earlier in our conversation about the fundamentals of it, so we base most of our investments on individual fundamentals of each individual company. So with a 3 to 5% weighting, if that company does something drastically wrong or goes south for some reason, we can deviate from that and have less of an impact, if you will, on the client's overall accounts. Whereas in a fund, when the markets go up and down, people are more affected by it. Sure, can it raise more? Sure, but Dave always uses the analogy, would you rather be in a limousine or on a bus? The bus will get you there, but you don't really dictate where it takes you and how long it takes and so forth and how many stops there are. With an individual car, you get to come and go as you please and get to where you need to be. So those are some of the analogies we use to make it simpler for everyday people to hear about it.
Here in town, I'm just going to tell you guys, that last segment right there with you guys talking, that was gold. That I can lock in on. Like that, the analogy thing. I have an idea, Dave or Jared. Yeah. I mean, the analogy thing I think is so helpful in layman's terms, because we always say with something, at least for me, like with investments, like I said, it's not my lane. But if you speak to me in analogies, if you speak to me in layman's terms, I really get it. And I feel like I have grown so much just within this episode.
Good. Great. Yeah, we're trying to make, don't you think when people try to make things complicated, they're it's usually a ruse to sell you something. Oh, this is beyond the pale of mortal souls. Yep. No, it isn't. We want to make this accessible to people, what we do. Our system may not be perfect for everybody. We're not saying it is. But what we do want is an understanding that if whatever you're in, nothing is perfect. And an array of responses sometimes is the best thing. And we've looked at it all. We think our response is something we can manage and explain. But a lot of these, crypto and things, we're beyond us. We can't explain them. Yeah. Well,
here's what we're going to do. Guys, we're going to take just one little break to thank our sponsors. And then we're going to come back and we're just going to kind of go a little rapid fire on a few things. And I have a big announcement. I'm coming back with a big announcement after the break here. So don't go anywhere. We got Dave DeCamilla and JARED MIKACICH of DeCamilla Capital Management, LLC. They are right here in Sacramento. Been doing it and doing it very well since 1998, located at 4101 J Street. Of course, we're going to drop all the information down in the show notes, but their website is DeCamillaCapital.com if you want to find out more information about what they do and who the team is. Dave mentioned some other names. There's another part of the team as well. So don't go anywhere. Back with more here on Experience the Buzz. Well, there you go. First half of our conversation with Dave DeCamilla and JARED MIKACICH talking investments. A lot of fun. I know it's 46 minutes or so in, but we do want to thank our sponsors because they are very, very important. Pit Boss Jerky, that's right. PitBossJerky.com. They've got a website now. I want to thank my good friend Joe Green, who is actually featured in episode number 26. That was all the way back in April 2021. The reason why he's the OG is because he has been here since day one. 12 amazing flavors starting at $9 a bag. Actually, is $9 a bag. I mentioned those 12 flavors. What if I told you there's a flavor named after this show? That's right. It's called Buzz Experience, along with my other favorite, raspberry apple chipotle, and not too far behind that, Island Teriyaki. Now, I only gave you 3 of the 12, but here are the other flavors. Original Spicy Island Teriyaki, which I believe is brand new. Sweet Summer, Big Heat, Little Heat, Urban Smoke, Honey Gold, Pepper Garlic, Sweet and Smoky. And also, this is brand new, Pit Boss Jerky offers beef sticks. That's right, they are priced at $6. So all you have to do to get your hands on what I believe is the best beef jerky in the United States of America, you have to go to pitbossjerky.com. You can order from there. It is very easy. Joe Green, very, very thankful for his support of this program. Also want to thank Mike and Mo's Barbecue. That's right, my producer and good friend Michael Kenobi. He is the owner of this fine establishment. He was featured, even though he's my producer, but his story was featured in episode number 129 back in November of 2023. Here's how you're going to find out about Mike and Mo's Barbecue. They are only on Instagram. No website, just Instagram. Go there. They are at Mikimos, which is MIKIMOS _barbecue, which is spelled out BARBECUE. Okay, again, that's Mikimos _barbecue. Caterer for all types of events. In fact, just recently, they just did a wedding. They serve savory barbecue delights for the greater Sacramento area. I love their tagline, your event, our barbecue. Let's make memories together. You name it, they've got it. Beef, pork, chicken. It's all there for you. Again, Mike and Mo's Barbecue, thank you for your support of Experience the Buzz. And our newest sponsor, that's right, on-call personalized urgent care with Dr. Julie Allen. Julie Allen, MD, who was featured in our last episode, episode number 137. Man, what a great story she has. It's like a doctor in your pocket. What do I mean by that? Think about this. What if you had something that happened and you thought you maybe had to go to the ER? But instead, what if you were able to call Dr. Julie, who on the spot could be there for you, and then if you had to go to the ER, could be an advocate for you? Pretty cool stuff. Well, that's what she is offering. Could save you trips to the ER. She could fill the gaps missing in the medical system. She provides in-home testing, prescriptions, school physicals. Think about that, parents. Elder care coordination, and is HSA eligible. Okay, so that's I believe that's a health savings account, which I do have, but I couldn't remember the name. But Julie Allen has come on board as a sponsor because here's the thing: we want to get the word out, help her get the word out, so that you can also have this amazing care. You can start by either going to personalizedurgentcare.com, or you can contact Julie directly and just ask the questions. There's no charge. 916-347-4468. So once again, a big thank you to our sponsors, Pit Boss Jerky, Mike and Mo's Barbecue, and On Call Personalized Urgent Care. They are the ones that help the machine, this ETB machine, keep going. So let's get back to our conversation with David Jared and talk more on investments.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode of Experience the Buzz by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. It means everything. Now, back to the show.
All right, welcome back. It is the tail end of Experience the Buzz, another episode in the book. So happy to have Dave and Jared on with us. We're talking investments, right? And it's been a good conversation, a great conversation that really has been an educational piece, hopefully for you, the listener. I know for me, for sure. So here's my big announcement. I'm just going to do it right here on the podcast. I would like to set up a meeting because I think what you have done for me is I realize that, yes, I'm doing the right thing, but I don't have a full understanding of it. And I think it's worth it for me as I'm trying to, establish and build on our family and our investments, that really I'm looking toward the future, right? I'm looking toward my kids and my grandkids and everything. That's really on my mind. And I realize that, yes, while I taught for 27 years, in the 26 years that I taught at St. Michael's here in Carmichael, I had a retirement fund that was in place. But what happens is when you become an entrepreneur, so I no longer do that, you've got to build all this stuff on your own. And admittedly, when I retired in 2021, it was a little bit scary. So on the investment side, didn't really have a retirement in place, although I just moved over what I had from St. Michael's. And then the other part was medical, right? You're always covered medically, and we had to kind of figure that out. So that was a transition for us. And this really plays into, Jared and Dave, of leaning on people that know the subject and are going to take good care of you, because I do believe in that trust factor, right? Like we were talking about stigmas. Car dealership comes to mind right away, right? I have PTSD when I go into a car dealership because of just bad experiences that I've had. You know, with this,
he's an expert on cars.
Yeah, well, there you go. So I guess my big announcement is I would love to be a client. And so I look forward to having a conversation with you guys. So how's that? That's pretty good, yeah?
That's where we like to start, absolutely. Yep. And the nice thing about our business is we have people in all the time, and we just have conversations with them. Sometimes they're not ready to do anything. Sometimes they're late to the game, so we do some adjustments for them. But we like to tell people all the time, it costs you nothing to sit down with us.
And see, I love that too. Yeah, the no nonsense, no pressure. It's just,
we don't sell anything.
Very big.
We don't. We truly, like Dave always points out, like, with all due respect, Microsoft doesn't really care if we invested with them. Right. You know, they hire the best people. They diversify for us, meaning they go into other countries and they handle that. They hire the best people to handle that market for us. So we believe in them as a U.S.-based company. We stick with them, but they don't need DCM. They really don't. So our feeling is that they're a great asset for our clients, right? So we don't sell products. No one knocks on our door and says, look, Jared, I'm going to give you a big fat kickback if you put so-and-so into this mutual fund. We don't do it. We work directly for people. And so therefore we can sit down with you, zero pressure, have a conversation, and still at that point assess what's best for you.
And let me ask you too, like I have a retirement fund which as explained to me, had to be liquidated over 5 years because I had to move it from one company to another. So I think I'm in year 3 of that. Honestly, don't completely understand that. And then I have just a standard band.
You shouldn't have had to liquidate. You should have been able to roll that over with a company like us or to yourself or directly with Schwab or something, and then just reallocate the funds. Maybe you don't. We do that all the time where we sit down with clients and they bring over 3 or 4 rollover accounts from different employers. And then what we do with them is we assess what's in those. And then we, a lot of times, liquidate and then just convert those into companies they should be owning.
Okay, perfect. I mean, that get right there, that gives me peace of mind because, you know, it's not something I watch daily. I might check it every, I don't know, couple months, maybe 2 or 3 months to see how it's doing and everything. But I'm not really watching it on a daily count. And to know that someone like you guys, your company is there and you can be able to alert me on things that are, I don't know, good, bad, and the ugly or whatever, that right there is peace of mind.
Yeah, the basic, the dirty secret, and there's more and more coming out on this, is that the IRA experiment that started in the early 80s basically hasn't worked. It's worked for 15% of the population, but it's underfunded. We have a rule here, nobody has any money until the kids leave home. When one is raising a family and you just don't have dough to sock away. So the loss of in the late 70s and the early 80s, companies got rid of the defined benefit plan. Our parents had pensions. They didn't have to become experts in investing and all that. They had a pension, came every month, and with their Social Security, they didn't really have any worries. That is not the case today. Everybody's got to be a little more assiduous in terms of paying attention to these things. And frankly, a lot of people don't. I don't like, dealing with cars and, mechanical things. I'm just not any good at it. And a lot of we understand that. So it puts a premium on people in our position being skeptical of things, promising more than you can deliver. The financial markets can deliver a return over time, but they cannot. They're not one of these things that Wall Street paints every day. CNBC's got to fill up airtime. I did a financial show for 30 seconds or 45. It was exhausting. I don't know how these guys fill up the airtime. Oh, here's another earnings report on Coca-Cola. Oh, come on. If you make the right decision once, you're going to be okay for a long time. Yeah. And that's what I think people understand that. They don't want to be, oh gee, we got to move in and out of things, and
you have to avoid the temptation to either buy or sell. It's a transactional industry. If you let it be, we try to avoid those things by buying good companies and sticking with them. Because they want, the industry, that's why they're constantly feeding you, buy this, sell that. I mean, it's literally every day. So part of what we provide is just that discipline, which I'll be quite frank, one of the most difficult things, one of the biggest hurdles for me was when we get new money, putting it to work. Like right away, don't sit on it, don't try to game and chase the market, put it to work. That is I think it's just, a human nature, a natural instinct to want to hold on to that and maybe ease in, but pick the right things and put it to work. And that was a big hurdle. And then also the discipline to stay with companies unless they have a fundamental breakdown. So those are the two biggest hurdles, I think, for me. Yep.
Yeah, another question I have too is like, we all have a standard checking savings, right? But I hear a lot too about, when you say putting your money to work and everything, that, putting your money in would it be a high yield where it can make money? Is that something you guys do?
Yeah, depending on your age, right? So we have, like I said earlier, we have growth, and we have core, and we have return. Those are basically the categories that we work within. And if, depending on your age and how aggressive you want to be, then we can be in some of the rabbits, we call them, for sure.
But household, I think you have to really differentiate between household money, checking and savings accounts and all that. Yeah. That's for rainy day money, and you need liquidity. What that does is it enables you to weather storms. Mm-hmm. You have enough liquidity. You don't have to invade your stocks. You know what I mean? So we would rather see clients in equity and cash, and we don't manage that. I mean, we won't keep enough so that the money you commit to longer term can do that. So when an 08 happens, you can, sometimes some clients use some cash to buy more of their position, but at a minimum, you're not bailing out of stocks to meet household needs. That's not a good thing. So in terms of whether your checking account pays 3% or 5 or 0, it's got a whole different.
I always say to my clients is you should determine what that cash reserve, the level you're comfortable with, and then the rest of it shouldn't be sitting there. So we focus on a lot of things like that, but you have to really determine, based on your family and your needs, what that dollar amount looks like, and that's different for literally everybody. And then after that money, the nice thing about what Dave and I do is we're not tying up people's money, if you will, for lack of a better term. Equities are very liquid. I mean, if you're willing to sell, there's someone willing to buy. And so we tell our clients, you can have a check within 2 days, and that just recently traded. Normally it was about 3 days. You would have a transaction, the transaction would clear, and then we would overnight a check. So that being said, a lot of people like the fact that equity investments are liquid and you can access your money pretty rapidly. It's not like
if you have a change in circumstances.
You don't need to sell out.
Try that in an annuity or some of these LPs, or they're just totally not liquid. They're not.
It's hard to get at your money. So ours is not. But again, the money that lives in your savings and in your bank account, that's going to be a personal preference based on your comfort level. And then the rest of it can be in equities. And like I said, if Dave pointed out, if a circumstance changes, that money's pretty liquid. You can get at it pretty quick.
Okay, I wanted to ask you too, as we kind of get, wrap things up, are you able to share what your fees are, or is it different? Or is that something you put out there, or how's that work?
Absolutely. No,
I can speak to that.
Yeah, go ahead. We're very
we charge 1.5 points on assets under management. If you have $100,000, it's $1,500 a year.
Okay.
If you have $1 million, it's $15,000.
Yeah.
Again, analogy.
And to an extent, now I've had different people talk to me on this, and you would want to check with your advisor or your CPA, but a lot of that, it was tax deductible. It was called investment-related expense. Well, with the tax change under the Trump administration, they did away with that. I've subsequently talked to other CPAs, says, no, you can do that. So I don't know, if you itemize deductions, it depends, you know, it's a deductible expense. But where does that compare? Okay, on the spectrum of like hedge funds, which are out there, your money's tied up for, 5 to 7 years. They charge 2%, 20% of the gains, and we don't participate in any of that, and 2% annual.
Yeah, management fees.
An index fund like you're in is maybe 25 basis points, which is 1/4%.
Okay.
Well, it's the old adage: you set the price, we'll set the grade. Low fees, here's your 800 number, and there's somebody there that's going to say, now, Mr. Buzzard, you need to be diversified. Okay, thank you. Click. On the other side, there's the hedge fund that give us your money, or the LP, don't talk to us for 7 years, and we'll get you a big return. Maybe that happens, maybe they doesn't. There's brokerage accounts that charge, you'd have to check with Merrill or Morgan Stanley. It's usually 2%, but those guys are working for a firm. They're employees. So in the spectrum of fees, we think we're about where we need to be. We haven't ever changed our fee. And Fisher Investments is on when they make more. When you make more, we make more. Well, that's the way this is. In OA, we eat off the same plate as our client. If they have a bad experience, our revenue goes down as well. So we want to be in the same boat, rowing the same way as our customer and client. Transaction-based business is not what we're about. And the industry really, I made the change in '98, and the industry's finally coming our way. They're finally, doing more of this, but the insurance industry has fought, you can check the news, they fought the fiduciary standard, meaning you got to work in the best interest of your client. I can't believe that, but they fought that tooth and nail. And the brokerage industry really hasn't adopted it either. So the advisor can get compensated for, promoting a certain position. It may or may not be in the client's best interest.
There's also a few other things to consider. We're a very tax sensitive process. Meaning we're not selling and buying a lot, so there's no transactional issues and there's no capital gains issues. Now we do sometimes book gains for our clients depending on what's happening, but for the most part, most of their money just rides through each year. But in a fund, you're going to probably be paying maybe a lower percentage, but in addition to that, you probably have management fees and transactional fees, and or you might be paying a lot in capital gains because they're constantly buying and selling inside those funds. So there are some other factors. Our clients seem to they know exactly, it's literally a line item, and there's no additional fees, and there's no gray area, and there's no transactions, and it's just really simple.
Well, let me just clarify. If something needs to be sold, we're going to sell it. Don't misunderstand it. And what Jared's alluding to is in like the taxable account, we're very tax sensitive. In a retirement account, we're also, our process is the same, but there are no taxes there. So we may sometimes be more inclined to be a little quicker on the draw in a tax deferred account. So it goes to what Jared's saying. Yeah, we are tax sensitive. We'll book gains where there isn't any implication for tax, and we can move to a better idea. There's 3 reasons we sell. 1, the company is overvalued, and that's basically it. 2, it's broke down. There's something wrong. Walgreens, CVS, those things are a disaster. Or 3, we have a better idea. We can upgrade to a better idea. No, then that's basically it. So there isn't a lot of wiggle room here. If Microsoft continues to perform, well, the best holding time for a company might be forever if it's doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Makes sense.
If it isn't, well, we don't, or you can lighten up on it, cut back a little bit. Yeah.
Well, here's what I've learned. This is my big
analogy, Steve.
I'm telling you, this is my big takeaway.
Longer in the tooth.
Analogies, investments with personalized touch, and it's local. And that is why I'm able to announce, I would love to come down and really just kind of lay mine out for you and know that it's in good hands. And I think you guys have done a great job of that. I appreciate you guys sharing your story because I think that's also a big part of why you're out here. Dave, glad we brought you out to the West Coast and you're doing great business. You've been doing it for 26 years and running. Obviously, I know you got a great guy in Jared who has come on board, worked with you for a few years, and I'm sure there's big things to come for you guys. Are there any big plans that you guys want to kind of, put out there in 2024 or 25?
Well, we're doing a bunch of things internally to be kind of more involved in the community, joining some social clubs, doing things like that. DeCamilla Capital is a big supporter of local youth sports with the RAP program at Rio and things of that nature. We sponsor some local fundraisers. We sponsor some local golf tournaments. So things like that are really, we're kind of pounding the pavement a little bit. I'm from the Carmichael area. I grew up basically Watt and Fair Oaks, and went to Rio. And so with my kids over there now, well, my one son, Jared's over there, Keevan's still in 8th grade, but we're just trying to get our message out to more people in the community because we are local, we're Sacramento based, we've been there, been here for so long, and we want people to know that they can come have a conversation, whether they become a client or not, is really, just going to be based on what they hear and what they understand. But again, we're just trying to have more conversations.
Well, and I'm glad, this conversation in itself, I think, will be very helpful for many out there. And of course, Jared, with me, I love promoting like small businesses, especially here in Sacramento. So however Buzzard Ball could be a part of that, of course, I'm definitely on board with that because I'm a big fan of small businesses. And Dave, you've done a tremendous job.
Thanks. I might just jump in with, we're down here on 41st Street. So there's the 41st Street Parade every year.
Yeah.
Massive. I have some artist friends, and they did a Statue of Liberty. So we do that on the 4th of July. Yeah. On Easter, we have a 9-foot bunny that we put out. And then at the holiday, at Thanksgiving, we have the turkey, El Pavo. He's out there. And then for Halloween, which is because we have the marathon coming down and the turkey's there, and the 4th of July. Well, Halloween is big too here. So I have the artist working on a 6-7-foot Frankenstein, from the movie in the 30s. So we have some fun too, and the neighbors have liked our building, and we restored it. And I got some Jerry Wahlberg sculptures here. So we've tried to, in your ethos, push the local aspect of it.
And that's
we
big.
We don't have the Fortune 500 companies here, so it's up to the little guys to step up and do what they can do.
That's the power. That's the power of Sacramento. I love that. All right, Dave and Jared, we did it. Podcast in the books. I want to thank both of you for being with me today and being able to, again, share your story. Again, it's DeCamilla Capital Management, LLC, located on J Street, 4101. And if you want to go to the website, it's DeCamillaCapital.com. We'll have that in the show notes as well. So there's an audio version that you can get on Apple Podcasts, you can get on Spotify Podcasts, Google Podcasts, you name it. We're on all platforms. And it's also right here on YouTube. That's right, a YouTube version. So, and I hope you, in whatever way it looks like, and you're with us now, that you enjoyed the episode. So I'm going to break away. What's that, Dave?
Send this out to our clients and everything.
Absolutely. I'm saying it's marketing material. So we're going to take a break, and I'll come back with a final word. And we want to thank you for being a part of Experience the Buzz.
It's been our pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode of Experience the Buzz by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. It means everything. Now, back to the show.
Well, friends, another episode in the books, and I do want to say thank you. Thank you because this really has been so much fun being able to do this podcast. Again, I'll tell you, we've been doing it since January 2021. Yes, it came out of COVID, had a broadcasting background, wanted to jump back in, and just being able to have the opportunity to now record and put in the books our 138th episode. Yeah, that's basically 138 or so conversations that we have been able to have with people who really are making a difference here in this city of Sacramento. Now, that means there's more to come, and I don't know who's going to be next, but I have got my feelers out. I'm really excited because the big news for me is I'm now back in retirement, so I'm no longer teaching. Was able to do my 1 year at Sacred Heart, and now it is off to the races. So I really want to pour into this podcast, get it back and going, and again, we'll be coming your way bi-weekly. So hope you enjoyed the conversation. Put in your comments, tell me what you think, and again, I'm going to become a climate at DeCamilla, and I'm pretty pumped for that. So that's all I got for now. Talk to you next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you for joining Steve this week on Experience the Buzz. Steve would love to hear from you. Leave a review or contact Steve directly with any questions at scbuzzard@gmail.com. To see the other adventures of Steve Buzzard, be sure to visit buzzardball.com.